Hello, good afternoon. DuEwa Frazier here, reading poetry today for kids and big kids, kid adults, because everyone can appreciate a read aloud if there's not a lot of whole things going on and just could be interesting. Okay, so I'm going to read from my children's book, 10 Marbles and a Bag to Put Them In, Poems for Children. I'm also going to read a poem or two from my second collection of poetry, Stardust Tracks in a Road. And I'm going to read from Shedding Light from My Journeys. So this is National Poetry Month, and people all over the world are reading poems, doing virtual reads, enjoying poetry from past to present. So I thought it'd be really cool to share some poems in my collection, and hey, maybe we can talk poetry. All right, so starting with 10 Marbles and a Bag to Put Them In, Poems for Children. We know that Mother's Day is coming up, so I thought I would read a poem dedicated to the moms. And this poem is titled Mommies. Mommies are fun, sweet and cuddly. Mommies will wipe your tears and sing your blues away. Mommies will kiss you in the morning before school and say, "Have a good day." Mommies work hard in and outside of the house. Mommies make the best cookies, pies, and cakes. Mommies know when you have a tummy ache. Mommies were once little children too. Maybe that's why they know how to take such good care of you. Mommies are tall, short, skinny, or round. Mommies are good to us every minute, all year round. So that's the poem. And the poem has some questions, activity questions. What kinds of fun things do you do with your mom? And what is something you would like to do with your mom? And just a note on this collection, this collection is primarily for children ages 5 to 8. It doesn't mean that a younger child or an older child wouldn't enjoy it, but that's just suggested age range. So some of the poems might sound like they're a bit young, but I've used them to teach workshops with students who are kindergarten, first grade, second grade, so it just depends on what reading level the child is at. Now let's go to page 15 of this collection, and the next poem I'm going to share is titled Ladybugs. This makes me think of my childhood, because when I played outside and rolled around in the grass, the ladybugs were always there. Hi, Ajahn. Ladybugs. See those little red bugs with polka dot spots and hard shells. They rest, then crawl to fly. Red bugs, spotted bugs, different bugs, tiny bugs. Some are orange too. You can see them in between blades of grass or even under a leaf. There's a ladybug. Hi, Janelle. And here's a Ladybug Activity for kids, and it asks the child to draw a picture of 5 ladybugs. Make each one a different color and use your imagination to give ladybugs the colors you think they should have. So sometimes you might see like a yellow or an orange ladybug, you know, here and there. Sometimes they're not always red, but this will ask the child to use their imagination pretty much. Okay, so I'm kind of skipping around to, thank you very much, kind of skipping around to some of my most favorite poems in this book. And these are poems that I wrote kind of with my childhood in mind, but also thinking about things that I thought would be interesting for kids. So when I was little, my grandfather had this little shed in the backyard where he kept coffee cans to help him with his gardening. I guess he would like put fertilizer in them and or whatever he was doing to help his vegetables and things grow. So I sometimes would go in that shed to get coffee cans and fill them with like little knickknacks. You know, when you're a kid, you're like looking around the yard, or when you go for a walk, you pick up rocks and stuff. So I started to accumulate marbles. Whether it was like going to the store to buy marbles, I had to have marbles. I was like obsessed with marbles for a while, like picking them up, finding them, buying them at the store. And I used to fill the cans with the marbles. So this is kind of where that poem came from. I found 10 marbles the other day when Sis and I went out to play. Some were tiny, some were large. Some had dirt on them from the garage. Some were red and some were blue. Some were purple like my shoe. We gathered our marbles with jacks, buttons, pins, and rocks. Some to hide in my bag and some to give away. We have 10 marbles and hope to find more red, blue, purple, even green and yellow ones each day. So after this poem, there are some reading questions that ask, what is something you like to collect? You know, when I was teaching K-12, I remember kids used to like collecting, I want to say Yu-Gi-Oh cards or Yu-Gi-Oh. I don't know if I have the word correctly. They were these different like anime type cards, and like, you know, you hear about people from back in the day collecting baseball cards. Some people like to collect what do you call it, comic books and things like that. So like I think a lot of kids have their interest on how they become a little collector. So that's just asking about that. And then it asks, where do you keep your collected items? How many do you have? And lastly, take a picture of your collection and paste it here. So it's just an activity if a child wanted to cut out some pictures of something that they have, or maybe from a magazine, and can kind of paste it here just as a reminder of the things that they enjoy collecting. So we're going to read 3 more poems from this book before we move on. So what do you all think? Are there any poems in here that you think that kids could really relate to, or maybe they could even think about writing their own poem? Because I like to inspire kids to write after reading and kind of build those skills and be able to express themselves. So okay, so hopefully if you all have any ideas, feel free to give me a comment. So I'm gonna move on to the next poem, and this is on page 27. It's called Sleep Tight, Nightlight. I love nightlights. I've, growing up, always slept with a nightlight. I don't know if it was like being afraid of the dark, but it was just something we always kind of had around, you know? And I think it helps when you get up in the middle of the night so you don't like stumble and fall if you have to get up, which, you know, sometimes if your house is really dark at night, it can be kind of creepy. So this poem kind of came from that, just thinking about how kids, sometimes they can't go to sleep or they can't really relax unless there's some type of little soft light that's nearby or in their room to help them kind of relax, calm down, and get ready to go to bed. Sleep tight, nightlight. See the night fall upon me, moonlight creep to come. Come inside my window, tuck me in to sleep. Bright light, moonlight, soft light, nightlight, any light, dance around my room. Come into my window, I will see you soon. Sleep tight, nightlight. I just love that poem. I always envision, like, I feel like you could read this poem to a baby or like a 5-year-old and they would just go right to sleep. So I just think that's really neat. Okay, so we're gonna read one more poem from this collection, and I think I'm going to go with page 30. And this is a poem that I usually have a really great discussion with kids about, because they start to tell me things that they're afraid of at night or just wherever. And this is titled The Boogie Woogie Woogie. So remember when we were kids, right? They used to say, the boogeyman is going to get you, you know, stuff like that. And who knows, what was the boogeyman? Was it a ghost? Was it just some mysterious figure that comes out in the middle of the night while you're sleeping? Like, why are kids plagued with the boogeyman? I don't know. So this is sort of like related to that. I think I hear the sound of footsteps in my closet. I think I see big white eyes looking at me from behind my chair. Mommy says it's not what I think it is. She says, baby, it's just not there. She says it's my big imagination, then kisses me goodnight. But when the lights are out, I imagine it is there, watching me in the night. The boogie woogie woogie with big eyes and a big stare. I place my hand over my eyes and hope my imagination takes me somewhere else. I think that is so funny. You know how like kids think, you know, if I just cover my eyes, it's gonna all go away. You know, your imagination just kind of runs away with you. So I always have a really good talk with kids when I read that. And there's some questions that come right after that. This is the page with the questions. Is there anything that scares you at night? Oh boy, the kids go wild and they love to discuss it. The noises, the sounds, the floor creaking, oh, when it thunderstorms, like all the different reasons to be afraid. The next one is, are you afraid of thunder, lightning, or an imaginary monster? Lastly, do you sometimes imagine that there is something creepy in your closet or under your bed? Describe this creepy thing. I can tell you when I was a kid, there were definitely creepy things all around. There was one behind a chair, one coming up from the window. I had a whole big imagination about what was, you know, creeping me out. But interesting, kids are so resilient. Somehow we always get to sleep when, you know, when we're kids. We eventually go to sleep and we wake up the next day. So it's just interesting, that whole phase. Alrighty, so that's 10 marbles in a bag to put them in. So now we're going to go to, I think I'll go to my first collection of poems, and I'm only gonna read one from this one because there's a lot of different poems in here. And I wanna keep it more for the shorter ones, like this is like being more kid-friendly, kid-themed, because a lot of my poems were ones that I performed, have performed with music, with bands, spoken word performance poetry, as most people would call it. But I think the shorter poems sometimes kids can more so relate to because they can digest it. They can think about the simple themes and the simple words that are in them and be able to figure out how they want to write a poem for themselves or even recite a poem. Okay, so this is Shedding Light from My Journeys, and it was my first collection of poetry written many, many years ago. And the title of this poem is called Butterflies. I found rainbows in my eyes today. I found rainbows in my mouth today. Rainbows in my soul and wings to fly, fly, fly. I saw myself weaving in and out of my life. I saw myself shedding old skin, a metamorphosis of many colors. Liken me to a new soul dancing into my new skin. I too am a wonder-filled creature unfolding strange and free. Butterflies cannot be caught. You can't hinder a butterfly, just smile, bless it and let it go. Release me, I butterfly, unfolding strange and free. So we used to snap after a poem that we really liked back in the day, and that's something that I do with kids sometimes when I'm teaching a poetry workshop. Okay, so that was Butterfly from my first collection, Shedding Light from My Journeys. So now I'm going to share a few poems from Stardust Tracks on a Road, and this is my second collection of poetry. And I can't really tell you what happened, but this was published many years ago, and then I stopped publishing it, but not on purpose. I think I was in grad school at the time, and you know, those programs are like 2 years or so. And it's like I published the book, then I was in grad school and I was working, and next thing you know, I just started being involved with other things, doing events and working and all that stuff. And next thing you know, I had other books that came after this one, but I didn't give this one the attention that it should have had. So I don't have a real good reason for that other than just timing and life being very busy. And I'm sure a lot of writers and creative people can attest to that, that sometimes you have different projects and you don't always know which one to give the attention to first. And sometimes as you're trying to promote and market and do a lot of things on your own, it gets difficult to manage some of your projects. So that's just my honesty on that. But it's a really fun collection, and I used to use it in some of my middle school classes when I was teaching. So this is Stardust Tracks on a Road, and I'm going to read Butterfly 2. So this is the sequel to the poem that I just read from the previous collection. Butterfly 2. Somewhere down in my soul, stages of life breathing free. Breathing love, an ugly piece of me turns to beauty, precious as gold. The light in me, my true colors unfold, glimpses of woman rites of passage. Liken me to that creature who can't be caught. To a new soul dancing in fading darkness, awaiting new steps, the call of new journeys, faces with my reflection. When I see myself, I find a butterfly unfolding knowingly, strange and free. I move one wing, then the other with invisible guides. I glide, I smile, I take it all in stride. I'm free, I'm new, see me before I flit on by. Whenever I read this poem, I really can almost hear like a little jazz music in the background. It just seems to have a sort of rhythm to it. And I don't know why I just went with that whole theme of butterfly. I guess just thinking about self-reflection, transformation, new things that you do in life. And whenever I read it to kids, they can kind of like chime in and tell me what they think about the poem and what they think it means, and have they ever felt themselves changing and growing. And we get into a whole really cool discussion about that. So that's what I use that poem for. All right, so this last poem I'm going to share is titled Rainbow Over Harlem. And I just love this poem because it also, I feel, has some rhythm to it that you can really connect to music, jazz, and things like that. And I consider this more of a historical poem when sharing with children, because some famous notable folks are included in this poem, and people that I really think were great people when they lived and contributed to our world. I saw a rainbow over Harlem just the other day. Had faces on it that twinkled, ones we remember from days long ago. Days when Ella Fitzgerald would scat. A queen I call the first lady of rap. When Cab Calloway sang and conducted his band with grace and ease. This rainbow showed the face of Billie Holiday and carried her bluesy voice into the breeze. The color gold on this rainbow was adorned with Langston Hughes poem titles like A Dream Deferred, Mother to Son and the Weary Blues. Tears fell from the rainbow as it showed the face of slain activist leader El-Hajj Malik Shabazz, the Prince of Harlem who fought by any means necessary to make his mark last. How we hope he is surrounded by peace, God, and his wife, Betty Shabazz. The rainbow disappeared after a while, with all of those faces that I knew. I wonder, will I see a rainbow over Brooklyn too? And that's Rainbow Over Harlem. I also always envision like an illustration with an actual rainbow and these people's faces kind of just glistening, you know, on top of the rainbow or somewhere around the rainbow, just there, present. And it's just a very, very kind of a spiritual feeling about it. So if this were an illustration, I think it would be really cool. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and end my poetry read aloud today. I read from 3 books, just to recap. 10 marbles in a bag to put them in. Stardust Tracks on a Road. And Shedding Light from My Journeys. If you're interested in knowing more about my books, you can visit litnoirpublishing.co. That's L-I-T, noir, N-O-I-R-E, publishing.co, or my artist website, DuEwaWorld.com. Thank you so much, and I will hopefully be back tomorrow with a different read aloud. I'm either going to do poetry anthologies tomorrow, or I'm going to do teen reads tomorrow. So these are 2 other books. Okay, well, have a great day, everyone. Be safe. Thank you.